What's up guys, my name is Ignas, welcome back to the channel. For today's analysis I've picked NVIDIA, ticker symbol NVDA. This week we already looked into the dividends, and now at a yield of 0.092%, there's not much of an opportunity to be had there. The stock continues on going lower, it is down over 12% in the last 5 days, going from almost $200 to $173 per share. Interestingly enough, we are still way over the 52-week lows of $134.59. So to look into the name further, first we'll check financials and fundamental ratios, then at what price analysts think the stock will be trading next year, after that if any superinvestors are adding into their positions, and lastly we'll go over the technicals of the price chart. There will likely be some good points beside the dividend, so let's start. The first part I want to check is revenue, and this is the history of the last 5 years. So back in 2017 they were bringing in $6.9 billion on the trailing 12 months. Then with 2018 that was increased to $9.7 billion. There was a bit of a top by the last quarter of the same year, where revenue accumulated to $12.4 billion for those 12 months. But after that we saw a slight decrease. The second quarter in 2019 came in at $2.2 billion, and that was the largest decrease for the year-over-year quarter, minus 30.78%. Then by the end of the year, the revenue on the trailing 12 months bottomed at just over $10 billion. But this was the turnaround point, where after it we saw a continuous increase. So in the middle of 2020 revenue was already at $13.07 billion, and in 2021 with $5.66 billion for the quarter, that was the largest year-over-year increase with 83.8%, and that still kept going up into this year, where the first quarter of 2020 was at $7.6 billion, and they brought in $26.9 billion on the trailing 12 months. So there was the small decrease in revenues in 2019, but after that we had consistent increases, 3xing on quarterly revenues from those previous lows. Second metric we'll check is the price to earnings. So back in 2017 NVIDIA was trading at price to earnings of 34.27, then in 2018 with the price moving a bit higher, price to earnings bumped to 37.13, but then in 2019 we had the price going lower to $35, so price to earnings bottomed then at 21.54, but afterwards P/E ratio was only increasing. In a year in 2020 with the price going up we had it at 52.17, then in 3 more quarters the price kept going up, so P/E reached the highs of 81.81, and for the rest of 2021 the price kept surging, but luckily earnings increased with it, so price to earnings actually went a bit lower to 78.64, though this year is looking way better, as with the price going lower we now have price to earnings at 44.03, so there is still a long way to go back to those 2019 levels, where price to earnings was under 30 and closer to 20, but with 44 right now, we still have it at levels prior to what we saw back in 2020. Another metric I want to check are the number of shares outstanding. So back in 2017 the number was at 2.6 billion shares, then in a year it got decreased by 2.62% at 2.53 billion, in 2019 another 1% decrease to 2.5 billion, and then the bottom was in the middle of the same year at 2.46 billion shares. But unfortunately after that the number of shares started to go up. So in 2020 we again had it at over 2.5 billion, a year-over-year increase of 1.62%, and in the middle of 2021 we had it at 2.53 billion, another increase for 1.12%. With the most recent quarter of 2022 the number is up for another 1% at 2.54 billion outstanding shares. So in these 5 past years they have been decreasing on the number of shares up until 2019, but unfortunately afterwards they started issuing them back. We aren't yet back to those 2017 numbers, but that is not a favorable trend. Still in 5 years they managed to buy back around 61 million shares, which at the current stock price of $173 would be a share buyback of over $10 billion. So that is around $2 billion a year, but it's nothing compared to NVIDIA's $400 billion in market cap. Now the next metric is the dividend yield. I already have a separate video regarding that, you can find the link for it in the description below. So now we'll just glance it through it quicker. The yield tops in 2017 at 0.4%, then drops to 0.22 in 2018, goes back up a bit in 2019 at 0.34%, but then with the price continuously moving higher, in turn the dividend yield is going lower. So in 2020 we have it at 0.18%, 2021 0.09%, and then by the end of 2021 with the price surging to over $300, the yield bottoms at 0.05%. Only with this year's sell-off, we have the yield inching back higher, now at 0.09%. Now let's go into my dividend investing watch list to check how much below average we actually are. So we are in my watch list, and this is the tab for NVIDIA, and from the dividend yield history we can find that on average in 5 years the yield was at 0.21%. So with the dividend at 0.4% in 2017, it was over average for 92.66%. Then in 2018 with 0.22%, that was still over average for 5.96%. 2019 we had it at 0.34%, 63.76% over average. But the last time we still had it at over 21% was 2020, with a yield at 0.25%, 20.41% over the 5-year average. Unfortunately, afterwards, the yield just kept going lower. By the end of 2020, we had it at 0.12%, 42.2% under average, and that bottom in 2021 at 0.05 was 75.92% under average. So with the price going lower this year, and the yield now going up to 0.09%, it is still under 5-year average for 46.65%. Now if you would be interested in doing a similar analysis yourself, you can do just that by following the first link at the top of the description. Otherwise, feel free to leave a ticker in the comment below, and I'll consider adding it into my watch list. It would be interesting to check what opportunities you've found in the market. So now we've looked into the history, but how about expectations? At what price analysts think NVIDIA will be trading next year? Here we have price targets from 4 to 4 analysts. They range from the lows of $160 to the highs of $400 per share. The average out of it is $326.46, and currently the stock is trading at $176.40. So analysts suggest that on average next year NVIDIA will be trading higher for 85.2%. Now let's take another angle. We have next year's earnings estimates from 37 analysts, and on average they predict that next year NVIDIA will be bringing $6.74 in earnings per share. If we assume that price to earnings remains the same, then for next year we are looking into an increase in price of around 19.3%. So overall analysts are quite bullish. In both cases they are predicting for the share price to go up, as they expect for the price to go higher from 19 to 85%. Now let us take a look into Superinvestors. Unfortunately, it seems that not many funds are holding the stock. Out of 3 names, 1 fund increased on their position, but then 2 still reduced. So Maverick Capital added over 400% on their position, going from 30,000 to over 150,000 shares. That was quite a big addition, though the position is still at 0.54% of their portfolio. But then 2 funds reduced on theirs. Meridian Contrarian sold 10% of their position and are now holding 18,000 shares, which makes 0.77% of their portfolio. But the largest reduction was in Mears and Power Growth Fund, where they decreased their position by almost 1/4, so selling out of almost 200,000 shares, and are now still holding almost 600,000, which takes up a comparatively large portion of their portfolio at 3.01%. So overall Superinvestors bought over 100,000 shares, but then sold closer to 200,000. Meaning that they are net sellers of the stock. Now let's also take a look into insiders. So in the last 6 months they managed to do 0 buying transactions, but they did sell quite a lot, in fact for 71 times, with the sales totaling at over $417 million. So it looks like that insiders are even more committed to sell out of the stock than Superinvestors. Now the last part I want to check is the chart. So the stock topped in November of 2021 at the highs of $346.47, but we were having a slow decline after that. In the middle of December we reached the 50-day moving average at around $280, then after a month in the middle of January of 2022 we were at at the 100-day moving average at $260, and by the end of the same month at the 200-day moving average with $220 per share. After that, the stock did move sideways for a few months. In February, we tested the resistance of the 100-day moving average and did the same again by the end of March, where the stock did manage to break out, but on April 4th there was a bearish crossover in the MACD, and we were about to get another cross between the 200 and the 50-day moving averages. So as the price was moving over the 300-day moving average as a support, the crossover that I mentioned did happen, and the price stumbled under $200 per share. Now recently we had it moving sideways a bit, but we are now getting another bearish crossover between the 100 and the 200-day moving averages. Overall, I think we are in a quite interesting place. The relative strength index is almost at oversold at 34, and we could be getting a bullish crossover in the lines of the MACD. So if we move higher, I would be looking into a resistance of the 100-day moving average. But we're also now close to another bearish crossover, where the 50-day moving average goes under the 300-day one. When that happens, we could be seeing the stock taking another leg lower. So now that we did all the steps, let's make a quick recap of what we found. Revenue has been going higher each quarter, increasing consistently starting from 2019. Price to earnings is not yet the cheapest of the last 5 years, but we are at least back to the levels we had before 2020. In 5 years, NVIDIA bought back 61 million shares, but that's a small buyback compared to its size, and in the past few years they actually have been issuing more shares out. Since they are not increasing on their dividend payout, even though the price is going lower this year, the dividend yield is still quite small, currently around 57% below the 5-year average. On the other hand, analysts are quite bullish, as they predict that the price next year will be going up in the range from 19 to 85%. Unfortunately, Superinvestors are in a different boat, as they are now net sellers of the stock, and insiders have also only been selling. There is though some setup in the chart. We now have the relative strength index at just over 30, and the lines of the MACD could be crossing up higher. But with the price continuously going lower, we have the pressures of the moving averages crossing down, and the next one will be the 50 crossing the 300. So that was it. Make sure to support the channel and leave a thumbs up under the video. What do you think? Is NVDA a worthy pick right now? Share your stance and your position in it in a comment below. If you would be interested in getting access to my dividend investing watchlist, then consider memberships. By becoming a member, you will get access to Discord, where I share all my Google Sheets documents and all the buys and sells exactly when I do them. This could be a great option to track my moves closely. Last week I did an analysis on a different company, so if you would be interested in that, then click on a video that is currently on the screen. And that was it from my side. Thank you for watching, and I will be seeing y'all in the next one.